Hello, Internet, and welcome to another Wednesday's serial. This time I want to talk to you about Batman v. Bigby. So, this is a book taking from Fables, obviously, with Bigby, the big bad wolf, and there's a series of wolf murders related, and Batman's having trouble understanding it because there are actual, not even just supernatural elements at play, but things that go beyond his kind of understanding. And this is a Batman pretty much set in, to the best of my understanding, with where Bill Willingham was writing Batman when he was doing Batman for a bit. So you see Cassie for a minute, and there's kind of this army of Robins. It's a interesting place for Batman to be. I haven't quite seen this status quo where Batman is kind of overarching this legion of Robins, which makes it very reminiscent of him being the Shredder and the rest being the Foot Clan or something. Just weird. I didn't like that too much, but it was interesting. I mostly didn't like it because Batman was playing like a drill sergeant. He didn't want anyone to like him. He wanted them to view him as a stiff figure. And I say this because he literally says that. That is dialogue in the book. I'm not a big fan of that whole area. The whole book is kind of moving pieces. It's a lot of building mystery to things that we know coming into the book. Like he ties Bigby down in the Batcave, then comes out and finds out that Bigby's just destroyed everything, but he can't understand quite how or why. Well, why he wanted to get out, but it's just it's an interesting book. I think it's fun. I think it's an interesting way to move through things. However, when I was reading this, I was really comparing it to Batman meeting Grendel, because to me, they're very comparable books. Matt Wagner does the Batman and Grendel bit, and it's a lot of Batman positioning around this character he doesn't understand, Hunter Rose, and is dealing with some forces he doesn't understand there. In both cases, it's kind of the creator's take on Batman coming through. And what's funny too is there is a mention of a Grendel in this, but the Grendel is like the actual problem here from the Fables a la whatnot, whereas Grendel is actually kind of a Grendel related, but it's a completely different thing. And so if you get into the whole multiversal thing, that's a chestnut to try to figure out. But I think there's some cool ideas, but I wanted to see more of Fables pour through into this book. And there's not much of Fables really in here. And so it's interesting. Also, the artist here, Brian Lovell, is competent, great, not the guy who did Fables. So trying to figure out who Bigby is, or if it's someone who looks like Bigby but isn't quite and doing something different, raises a lot of questions. And that's hard because I've really only ever seen Bigby drawn one way. And to see him drawn a completely different way in a different setting, in a different kind of book, it didn't really sell this kind of idea to me. That's the nature of comics, right? I think this was fun, worthwhile, just not the book that I was maybe hoping it might be, because I feel like if you took care of a little bit more of what I'm saying, could have been a standout hit, could have been a real big deal. And this what's holding it back kind of takes away from the whole joy of what this crossover could have been. I will say, though, in the sense that this is a crossover comic, especially a Batman crossover comic, unlike Batman v Spawn or Batman v Grendel, like this works well on its own. It is a decent, fun superhero mystery thing to move through and is a competent comic. Whereas often, like, of what I've read of Grendel, Batman v Grendel, worst of it. There's too much trying to match and have two main characters on opposite sides playing each other, especially when they don't even meet each other through most of the book. it's not a very fun play against each other. Whereas here they meet each other relatively quickly, and they move through the book and deal with different things. But Bigby doesn't let on too much. They don't have that kind of frame skip that normally happens in a crossover where these two characters talk and now there's like an info dump between them so they have a general understanding of each other's worlds. I'm very happy that didn't happen, which is something that kind of happened even in Batman Ninja Turtles, which makes a lot more sense there because to try to hash that out would have been a nightmare. So, I don't know. If you're holding off on this one, look for a sale or something and grab it. But I think there's some better books you could probably check out too at the same time if you're thinking maybe you want to skip it. There you go. Hope all is well. Hit you soon talking about another comic.